Get ready for an uplifting experience with Coached Soul. Join us as we bring you the dynamic duo of Steve Hudgens, a licensed professional counselor, and Kenya Evelyn, a transformational leadership coach. Together, they'll guide you through engaging episodes filled with valuable insights and actionable tips on mental health, relationships, self-care, emotional well-being, and personal growth. Coached Soul is your go-to podcast for empowering discussions that will help you thrive. So let's get started and welcome our hosts, Steve and Kenya.
Hello, Coach. It's So Community. Kenya here. We're so excited to have our beloved Steve with us today. A little bit different. We were talking off mic about everything that's going on in the world. So much wave of invitations for forgiveness. That's what I hear you saying off mic. Steve, tell us more about forgiveness.
You know, I had to learn how to do forgiveness. That is the toughest thing to do, but what I've learned about for me about forgiveness, it's learning how to be vulnerable. And as I became vulnerable, it's allowed me to increase in confidence, because when we're confident and vulnerable, we don't have to hide anything. And so when I think about forgiveness, it's about how to release this negative energy that holds weight down to us. And we think, well, we always hear the expression, forgive and forget. The only animal that I know that doesn't forget is an elephant.
Right?
Right?
So tell me, how does this play out in your practice with couples?
You know, it's interesting because it can become challenging, especially when I've got two dynamics of couples that I've been working with. One couple is where he emotionally cheated, and the other couple is where she physically cheated.
Okay.
And so it becomes a heavy dynamic of how do we get past this wrong, this trust that was broken. And it's the Sesame Street word of the week of forgiveness.
Do you see a difference played out between the genders? For instance, she physically cheated in one case and he emotionally cheated. Would it make a difference if he would have cheated physically and she would have cheated emotionally? What do you see in your practice?
For me, I don't see a difference, because cheating isn't cheating. You know, I shocked myself when I had a couple who came to me, and she is, I said, what's going on? Well, there is some signs of him kind of cheating again. I'm like, okay, what's happening? Well, he's cheated before when we went down that path. And I looked at him and I just simply asked, what's the purpose behind you cheating that hurt your family? And now she's suspecting you doing it again. And his answer was, well, my therapist that I had at the time told me that I must have been going through a midlife crisis. Now, I shocked myself. I said, I think that is a bullcrap of an answer.
I was about to say, sounds
believe
like a big excuse, babe.
exactly. He was not holding himself accountable for the wrong that he was doing, but pacifying, deflecting, and just rationalizing his behavior. Unfortunately, they didn't come back. She did for a couple of times, and she later on messaged me and says, hey, I filed for a divorce because he was actually cheating again. And so, do we deserve that type of treatment to allow a spouse to continue to hurt us in such a way that breaks our trust? I don't think we need to hold on to that resentment. No one deserves to have their trust broken. No one deserves to be able to feel betrayed. It just creates such a darkness that there's things to hide. And so I've been cheated on once, and it's not a good situation. And the way I found out is I hired a private detective. And unfortunately, you got to be careful what you seek, because oftentimes the reality is that's there. And it's about learning how to accept reality, even though you may not want to. So when
I
you
hear
think of
so much. Yes,
it's a lot,
I
it's
hear so
deep.
much. It is a lot. There's many layers of cheating, and I really don't want to be talking about the cheating. I want to be talking about the entanglement of the choice of forgiveness.
Right.
Right? In the end of the day, forgiveness, in my personal opinion, in my own life, and with clients and patients and everything that I have seen in my 46 years, if you will, um, it really is an act of self-love.
Mm-hmm.
Forgiveness is an act of self-love. It has nothing to do with somebody else deserving it or not. I deserve to have that weight off my back. I deserve to have my heart open so I can love again, so I can continue to be authentic. And when I say I, dear listeners, if that resonates, I mean you. You deserve to live the life and the relationships with an S that you're here to live. And sometimes those bumps happen for
Mm-hmm.
different reasons, and I'm not going to highlight yours. You and God needs to weave into the why, if you care to go that route. It could be that some people actually created that separation because we're not feeling each other's needs, and it's a real thing. Well, he's emotionally unavailable, she's physically unavailable, or vice versa. I've been married for almost 19 years. Our marriage has had everything you can imagine, right? Sometimes I'm emotionally unavailable, sometimes I'm physically unavailable. With the man happens to be always physically available. Just being honest here, y'all, just keeping it real. Um, and sometimes emotionally unavailable, in all the colors of the rainbow. I think that the real conversation here is, you don't have to take anything.
Right.
It's always a choice. The
It,
real
it,
conversation is, if you're standing in your worthiness, you get to see yourself in the mirror and say, oh, hey, how did I create this? Truly, in full ownership. How did I create this? Did I create this by being passive aggressive and allowing people to walk all over me? Because that's one type of creation. Did I create this by being unavailable myself? And then I generate that disconnection and separation. I mean, this is deep stuff. Coach it so it's not for the faint of heart. Okay. It's when you stand in non excuse, I'm here to live a fulfilled life that Jesus said that I will live. That means that you live in the creation of ownership. You're not a victim.
the thing about what I look at forgiveness, it can be challenging because when you think about forgiving, it's technically not about forgiving that other person.
Never.
What it's about submitting to surrendering your vengeance and the resentments, because I mean, you've been wronged. I mean, how great is it to hold the power over somebody's head to just really to get back at them? It's the power
Mm.
of control. And what I mean by power control, sometimes it's a form of the silent treatment. And there is no explanation as to why this person's offering you a silent treatment. And so that is a sign of no forgiveness whatsoever. Now, one of the things that we need to kind of bring forth in this topic is that Kenya and I both are faith based. And when we think about forgiveness, it's not about being a doormat and allowing somebody to walk all
No.
over us.
No.
It is technically about being right with your spirit.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about holistic, I'm a holistic therapist. What does that mean? Mind, body, and spirit. It's about bringing the three into an agreement, because it's when one cog is off, it makes everything else feel off.
Mm-hmm.
So when I go to the scripture, he's saying, hey, Jesus, how many times do I need to forgive somebody? And he says 7 times 70. Well, does that mean that we keep forgiving that person that keeps doing us wrong? Well, first of all, we don't put ourselves in that position again. If we feel like we've been wrong, then okay, we can forgive. But does that mean that we need to immediately trust them again? Or do we allow an opportunity for their behavior to make the changes and then rebuild that trust once the behavior is there? I mean, Kenya, it's like if I did something wrong to you, uh, I would hope that you would say, hey, Steve, this wronged me. I'm not sure if you realized it wronged me. Well, give me the
But I get
opportunity.
I get to have worthiness to
Yes.
say that.
How did how is that?
I
How does that
it
happen?
is it's a shift. The best way I can describe is a shift. I never not remember myself not powerful. But if I would compare this version of me with the 10-year ago version of me, I was actually not. I can't compare. Like, it's a different level. So sometimes, and I really want to talk direct to our listeners here, sometimes the best you can do is nod your head, no, and walk away. If that is the best that your body can take it, honor that. Sometimes the best you can do is walk away, take a breath, and come back with the right words.
Mm.
Because it's not about reactivity. Reactivity draws back to the trauma. It's the trauma that got triggered and you react. So, in the midst of a conversation that is inviting you to step into forgiveness, it's also inviting you to step into a higher version of you, the one that is connected with God, the one that knows that when you ask the Spirit to pour His gifts, you can do all things. Now, if you're all dependent on your human self and your avatar body, you're going to be pulling hairs because we can only do so much. Truly. Truly. But with the realm of the spirit, we can do all things.
Right. And the thing about it's asking yourself if there's a difficulty in forgiving, where does that hurt go? And when I talk to people who are struggling with forgiveness, where in the past does this show up that you don't want to let go of the hurt, the pain, and so you don't want to forgive? It's almost like, it's that myth that we say, well, if I forgive, I'm letting them off the hook.
Exactly. I heard that many times. Mm-hmm.
Well, is there any truth to that, though? We're letting them off the hook if we forgive?
Yes and no. Yes and
Yeah.
no. Yes. I say yes because, yes, you're letting them off the hook and you're trusting that natural consequences are following their way, that you are not the judge of their lives, but you are in self-love
Right.
enough to say, I do not allow in my sphere no more energy drain from this individual, from this event, from this person, from this job, from this boss, from this kid, from whatever.
When you
Kids, all they want is to be loved, right?
that
When I
I'm
when
glad
I
you said that, Kenya, because here's my question for you. Okay.
Mhm.
What is it about children?
Mm.
They get hurt, but the next day they act as if nothing ever happened. They're best of friends. What happened to us in adults that it just seems like we can't forgive like little kids?
Okay, so I'm this this question just coming to me as a download. Like I have never thought about this. It's just coming to me now. They don't have as much baggage, babe.
Oh,
So they are able to just be here, like not as much as the dogs. The dogs can be here in the next second. And kids is sort of the same way, as young as they are, as fast as they shift. Now
mm,
at 12 they shift a little slower. At 4 it's like they're becoming more heavier, more dense energetically, for real. They're not as light. Now I just had a clearing with my kid before I start this podcast today, because I stepped inside of the house and I said, you got to be ready, blah blah blah, and he wasn't ready. And I said, no, I have a podcast with Steve in 15 minutes. And since you're not ready, we're not going. Because I was supposed to drop him somewhere. But it turned out to be a little heated because it's a birthday party. And he's like, but you said, blah, blah. You know how that's going. So I did not answer in a way that I would love to share that I would have answered if I was not under pressure, because I really wanted to honor my word and my timing commitment with you. And I asked for a clearing. So before 5 minutes before we started, Steve, I said, come to the office. And I said, I want to clear with you that no one deserves to talk ugly with you, including me. I want to
mm,
clear with you that I would like for you to always assume that I come from a place of love. Can you practice? Those were exact my words for him. Can you practice assume that as your mother, I'm always coming from a place of love, and I'm requesting you to trust me. If I say go, it's not, it's go. I'm on a timeline. There's things going on behind the scene. There's so many moving parts. And I want to clear it that my tone was off and I love you so much and did not come across loving. He said, I
mm.
forgive you, mom. His exact words. I forgive you, mom. It's like, are we clear? It's like, yeah, okay. It's nothing, but it's everything.
You know, even from a parent perspective, I mean, when I had my kids and they were growing up in my household, I would go to my daughter or my son and I say, you know what? I apologize because the consequence I gave you was too heavy. So
Ooh,
here's
that's a
what
good
I'm
one,
going to
Steve.
do.
That's a good one. Mm-hmm.
And I apologize to them and provide a way for them to redeem, but not with such a heavy consequence. Because if there's a heavy consequence, then what happens is that child starts beating themselves up that I'm not
Big
worthy, I'm not good enough, there's nothing that I can do. So when I realized that, you know, apologizing to my children was a powerful tool to use
100%.
because I love both
And
of them.
for me, the lessons as my kids grow, because you can rest assured that I'm much better with other people's kids, right? Because I have no attachment whatsoever.
Right.
I'm a neutral to serve. So with my kids, I get to remember on a daily basis, on a minute basis, detachment, 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 detachment. It's not one and done. Parenting from a place of love, it's not one and done. It's like, just like a marriage. Like you renew your vows, you renew your vows, you detach, you detach. So the biggest lesson for me in forgiveness is to request what I need to. We do not get to dehumanize our needs. Right? I remember dehumanizing my needs as a wife, dehumanize my needs as a mother, dehumanize my needs as a friend. No, I can do it. I can handle. I can carry. Because I can doesn't mean I should. Because
Mm.
it gets heavy. It gets heavy, and then you get resentful. It just is. I don't care where you are in the spectrum. I promise you, this is the beginning, the middle, and the end. The wave is I'm here to serve. Beautiful. You're a light being. Perfect. I command you. I see you. And you get to love you first. Period. Now, how are you going to work it out how to love yourself first? Go journal. Go figure it out. Go you and God. We have talked about many times in previous podcasts. For you might look like a bubble bath. For a guy might be like poker or mini golf or whatever. Actually, mini golf is for kids. Real golf, uh, um, or reading a book or alone time. I don't care what it is, but you've got to come from a place of taking care of you so that you show up for others. And then you're able to forgive, like you actually have energy. Did you know forgiveness also takes energy? It
Yes.
takes energy to release energy.
But here's the
It
question.
takes energy to create and energy to release.
So, Kenya, because you dive into the frequency, right? Help our audience to answer this question. What takes more energy, to forgive or to hang on to anger?
It takes much more energy to carry the heavy weight of energy, because I want you to think about the heavy weight as a syrup that you put on top of the ice cream. Does it stay on top, or it melts through every area of the cup of ice cream? If you're carrying that, it will melt, it will contaminate, it will create residue in every area of your life.
You
Every
know,
area.
I'm fascinated by this topic of forgiveness because in 2007, there was a community in Nickel Mines, Pennsylvania. It was the Amish community. And actually, it was 2006, if I'm thinking about it. It's a tiny community where a man just stormed into a one-room schoolhouse of the Amish, shot 10
I remember
girls
that.
and killing the 5. Then he killed
I remember
himself.
that.
And what was
Mm.
so fascinating about this is that, the world was inspired by the Amish. They expressed the forgiveness towards the killer, that they also took in his family and took care of her and the children.
Wow.
But there was a misconception that the Amish had quickly forgotten the tragedy. And it wasn't that they forgot, it's that they chose to be able to forgive. They don't drive electricity cars, and they don't use electricity. They don't use cars,
Yeah.
and they don't use mental health. But one of the things that I found fascinating was Dr. Baylor and his I hope I said that right, is Beeler, and his therapist. They counsel many people in the Amish community. And a year later, he says, we've talked to these people and they're all dealing with this one day at a time the best they can. There are still nightmares. Some of the school children are dealing with what we could call emotional instabilities. And
Yeah.
this would go on for several years yet. The thing about it is, it's the commitment to help others. And, tragedy changes you. You can't stay the same. But what helped them was their faith and belief in God that enabled them to be able to have that power of just being able to work with that. We're
Mm.
all human beings. I hope we are, right? They say aliens live
100%.
amongst us, but we're human beings. The thing about forgiveness is, can we allow the energy of forgiveness to come? Because here's the frightening thing. We know, as faith-based people, if we don't forgive others, we're not going to be forgiven. Even though it says that God forgave the world, that he gave his only begotten son, right? And so how do we forgive? It just
Say,
takes.
I want to rewind a little bit if you're
Go ahead.
complete. What I heard through this story is that the Amish was operating from a completely different frequency.
Mm-hmm.
In everything in their lives, they were operating differently. So, have you tried to explain blue to somebody that never heard the color blue?
That would be challenging.
You can't.
Right.
Right? You say, well, the blue is something like you put black, but you tone it down. Oh no, that's great. You see what I'm saying? So you can't explain frequency when somebody's tuning into another frequency. I can't, I can live. And that's what they do. That's what we all do. But I'm using Amish as an example. They live in a realm that is deeply connected to Earth. They live with less distortion, less electronic distortions, physical distortions. They live in more pure and simple life. I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm just saying they live in a different frequency. So to explain forgiveness through the point of view of the Amishes, only the Amishes. Because, you know, that regular person would say, how can you forgive so quickly? And how can you take care of the family of
Right.
the, how can you do that? They deserve blah, blah, blah. Because they don't operate that way. They actually live in integrity. So the real question is not what is forgiveness? Because everyone will show up in the level of forgiveness that they are ready to right now. I really want to make this clear. Because if you're hearing this today and you feel a stirring in your soul that forgiveness is calling you home, listen and allow it to speak to you. And it might just be that the first step is to say, you know what? There is unforgiveness in my spirit, and I'm requesting that to boil up to the surface and integrate out of my field. I'm requesting that. Put it as an intention. Put it as something that, you know, I'm calling God and show me where to go. But not out of fear, y'all. Not out of fear. We're not going to get religious about it here. And I know, Steve, that, you know, we have a lot of things in common, but we are God believers. We believers in God. And I do know that we also have our own personal interaction. So I actually don't believe in the fear-based religion at all.
Oh.
Because fear is all the way here. And God
Well,
is
the
not.
key word that you shared was religion. And when I think about religion, it's about how do we work out our salvation through doing many different things. We got to do this, we got to do that,
Correct.
we got to do this to earn our salvation. Nowhere does the scriptures talk about how that religion-based things for us to do things. You know, the life that I live, people ask me, well, how do you brand yourself? Well, my branding is I'm a biblical based Christian that doesn't follow religion, doctrine, or creed of any organization or non denomination structure. I'm just a follower of Christ who sees things differently than a lot of the other evangelicals that are out there simply because I look through the eyes of forgiveness.
We love God. Period.
Yes.
And I love that.
We do.
And again, if you feel, even when you feel that there's things in your shoulders that don't belong to you, there are hurts that are coming up to be seen and to be clear, like a stain in your clothes. Just know that you don't need to wash it by yourself. That's what we're saying.
Right. Kenya, I appreciate this time and opportunity with you to talk about forgiveness. You know, to our listeners, we appreciate you tuning in. Keep tuning in. We want to continue to help bring a female-male perspective and just to create some thought. That doesn't mean that we're right or wrong. It's not about right or wrong. It's about coming together with a thought that how do we come with two different opinions and come out with something greater on the other side. So until next time, have a blessed week.
Love you so much.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Coached Soul, where we aim to empower and uplift you on your journey towards personal growth and well-being. Remember, as you navigate through life, you don't have to do it alone. We encourage you to reach out to professionals, seek support from loved ones, and take the time to prioritize your own well-being. Stay tuned for future episodes filled with even more valuable insights and actionable tips. Remember, you have the power to thrive. And with Coach at Soul by your side, anything is possible. Until next time, take care, stay empowered, and keep shining your brightest light.